This room has gotten a whole lot prettier and a whole lot smarter because I've got Jessica with me in here, and she writes under the name Jessica Deen Norris. She's a young adult fantasy author. She's got 3 books out: Firesight, Frostlight, and Stormsight. She has a 4th book coming out. She's doing a special edition omnibus on Kickstarter. You should absolutely check that out. Just search for Jessica Deen Norris or Dragon Guardian Chronicles.
Yes, and that is Deen with 2 E's. It's spelled differently, D-E-E-N. So, yeah.
But Jessica's the whole reason that I got into helping authors, because I got that front seat view into what it was to run an author business. I go more into that in the last video we posted. But yeah, I've got Jessica in here because she can talk about her author business way better than I can talk about it.
So I'm excited to be here.
A lot of times people ask her, how does she do all the things she does? She writes books, she homeschools the kids. Like, how does she do all of it?
I don't do a lot of things. That's how I do it.
But the things she does, I would have to say, like, you probably have systems and checklists, and that without those systems, would you be able to do all the things you do?
No, definitely not. That helps.
So what I want to go over today is the systems you have for basically like your weekly or monthly finances, basically like the checklist. What do you do on a weekly basis to manage the finances in your author business? Because I help you with it, but also you like to do some of that yourself.
Yes, I do. I kind of prefer handling my finances, but letting him take care of the taxes and everything. I basically have a checklist that I use every single week. Every Monday is money day for me. I have a checklist that I go through for that so that I remember to do the same thing every week. So
I was thinking you could go through that checklist. Like, what do you do on a weekly basis, and just walk through, I do this and then I do this, and like we could talk about those and see if people think this is interesting.
So the first thing I do is check my inventory, because I sell my trilogy and other books and merch on my Shopify store, as well as having the stuff on Amazon and other retailers. So the very first thing I always have to do is check inventory and see, is there anything that I need to replenish? Is it time to reorder anything? All of that. How do you know, like, what's a good number? How do you know when you have too much or too little inventory? So I have a spreadsheet that
this is a woman after my heart. I love this lady.
That I put together, and it was a long time ago, so you probably don't even remember that you helped me put it together. Remember. I basically have this spreadsheet where I check to see how many books did I sell, like each particular book, how many did I sell in the last 30 days. So then I can get a good average number of how many I'm selling per day, roughly. Then I know from that, how many days of inventory do I have left? When am I going to run out of my inventory? Then I have to think about, and I have that all in the spreadsheet, how long does it take for those books to come in? Obviously, I can't wait until I'm completely out of books to reorder. I need to order with enough time to get those books in. I have all of that, and it glows red and yells at me whenever it's my inventory is going to get too low.
And that's important, because if you have too much inventory on hand, that represents money you've spent that you're not getting paid for a long time. But if you run out of inventory, then you're missing out on possible sales that you could have. The goal would be to run out of inventory the second before it's restocked and ready to sell, so that you're always selling only as much as you can. But obviously, like, that's impossible. So you want to get it as close there, but like have some sort of safety stock there to make sure that you're minimizing the amount of inventory you have on hand, because that maximizes your cash flow.
Yes, definitely. I try to stay on top of it and check that first thing every Monday.
So what's the next thing you do?
So the next thing that I do is I fill out my weekly KPIs. And so
What's a KPI?
KPIs are, I already forgot what it stands for.
A KPI is a key performance indicator.
Yes, that.
So a key performance indicator is something that you're tracking, and you decide what your KPIs are based on what you're trying to do. I see a lot of people focus on metrics that don't mean anything. Like, are you focusing on likes and comments on your social media posts, but those don't actually maybe translate to sales? And maybe they do, but that's the thing you have to check is, are those metrics important? You've got some sort of dashboard or template on the metrics you track.
Yes. So I keep all of that in Notion. I have a database in Notion where I'm looking at the last Monday to Sunday. There's some things that I started out checking every week, like my followers on Instagram and things like that. And for me personally, I haven't found that whether my followers went up or not if that translated into sales. I haven't seen much of a correlation there. It's like my social media following just does what it does, but it doesn't seem to have any effect on sales. So I stopped looking at that. But I do keep track of my newsletter subscribers because that's super important, and that does translate to sales. Pretty much if I send out an email, I'm usually going to at least get some sales. So I track my newsletter subscribers. I track my net sales from the week before because I don't care about gross sales. Gross sales include taxes and shipping, and to me that's like an in and out. So I don't need that.
That's somebody else's money.
Yeah, exactly. So I like to see net sales. What did I make after, besides the shipping and the tax? And that's on Shopify. Then I also look at my Amazon royalties. For a while, I was trying to look at royalties everywhere because I am wide. So I have stuff from Draft to Digital, Ingram Spark, all of that. But it got to be too much to check every single place every Monday. So now I pretty much just look at Amazon because for the most part, if Amazon's going up, the other retailers are too. It's just kind of the biggest indicator of something either going well or going wrong. So I track my Amazon royalties and I track my Facebook ad spend. I want to know how much did I spend on Facebook ads the week before and Amazon ads. And I want to know what my ROAS, or if that's even how you say it, but it's return on ad spend. So I want to take that number of the sales divided by how much I spent on ads for Shopify alone, and I also look at it like in total with royalties and everything. These are sales that I actually made the week before. Amazon royalties and stuff I'm not going to get till months later, but I do like to see that my Facebook ad spend is correlating to an increase or decrease in sales or whatever.
And like she said, your KPIs, the metrics you track might be different than what she's tracking. It just depends on what you're trying to fix at this point in your business. And at some points, ROAS might be more important than average order value, or average order value might be more important than conversion rates. So I'll probably do a video later on all the different metrics you should track and how to pick the ones that are right for you. The most important thing though is just to start tracking. If you don't have the data, you can't analyze it. So try and be just like an observer for a minute and don't analyze. Just get the data, put it down, quantify as much as possible, just so that later you can see like what those trends are.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that I narrowed down that those were pretty much the ones that I wanted to look at the most because I want to know if I'm spending way too much on ads, and so I'm not actually making a profit, because it's nice and all to have these like big Shopify numbers, but it's no good if you're spending it all on advertising or inventory or whatever. So I try to keep track and make sure that I am profitable.
That was check inventory, fill out your KPI sheet. So you're going out and getting those numbers and just putting on a dashboard. And then what's your third thing you do?
Then I update QuickBooks and YNAB, meaning like just getting the transactions in and categorized.
What's YNAB?
YNAB is you need a budget. QuickBooks is great for financial statements. It's great for your CPA to use for taxes and everything, but it doesn't help you budget your money. So I need to know I have bills to pay. I need to know that I have the money to pay those bills. So I use YNAB in order to do that.
Because YNAB is forward-looking. You take money and you say, this is what I'm going to do with it, whereas QuickBooks is more backward-looking. Like, this is the money that I spent, and let's see what happened.
Yeah, definitely. So it's a little more trouble, but I do both. But they connect to your bank feeds, so it pulls the transactions in for me, and it does a lot of the categorizing for me too. I usually just have to like tweak a few things and change a few things, and then I'm done. So that part actually doesn't take that long. After I update the bank feeds, the transactions, then I look and see, okay, so how much money do I have that I can budget with? And so I do all of this part in YNAB, where I decide how much needs to go to profit, how much have you talked about bank accounts and stuff on here yet?
I think I've mentioned this briefly in another video, that we use something called Profit First, which is basically just a cash management system for your business. you're tricking yourself into seeing only the money you have available in the bank that you should spend. So like you're taking out what you want to set aside for profits, you're taking out what you want to set aside for taxes. I'm going to do a much deeper dive video into Profit First and how it works for authors specifically. But just know that what she's talking about is moving money to different bank accounts for different purposes, kind of like you would with a budget. And so that's your next step. You're actually moving that money.
Yeah. So then I'm actually moving that money to the different bank accounts and make sure that everything goes where it's supposed to. And then the last step is I pay my bills, which is not the fun part.
It's cool. It's kind of like high level. How much inventory do I have? Because that's something actionable. You might need to make an inventory order. And so you want to check that first. And then number 2 was your KPIs, right?
Yes.
So then high level, how are things going? And then going a little bit more specific, like, okay, what are the transactions that happen? Let me update my bookkeeping. And then very specific, let me allocate money where it needs to go and then pay the individual bills. So you're kind of taking a top-down approach to it.
Yes. Yeah, because I need to see the big picture when I get to the point of actually allocating my money and budgeting and paying my bills. Well, if I realize that I need to make an inventory order, that might kind of change what I pay first and how I allocate my money. So I need to see that big picture, or I need to see, oh gosh, sales are kind of down right now. I probably don't want to spend money on translations just yet or whatever. So it helps me to make better decisions whenever I do it that way.
How long would you say this takes you every week?
Maybe an hour. I mean, it really doesn't take that long. Once you get used to doing it and you're updating those transactions every week, you get into a routine. So it's really not bad.
And I'm going to put you on the spot. And we're going to pretend like we can't edit this if you can't come up with an answer. But what would you say was the biggest benefit or the biggest shift for you by having this routine that you go through on a regular basis as opposed to something else?
Just peace of mind. I mean, I know that my bills are paid. I know that exactly what I have coming up and what's coming due. I do have a small planner where I write down my bill due dates. So all I have to do is look to the week ahead, make sure that I'm paying everybody, that everyone's taken care of. Just having that peace of mind that I know the money is set aside for what it needs to be set aside for. Nothing's fallen through the cracks. That's huge.
And I know from talking to other authors who have their own systems in place, just knowing that you're going to work on it, then on a random Wednesday afternoon when you start thinking about bills, you have that backstop of knowing, yeah, but I'm going to do that Monday.
Yes.
So then you don't start to panic, you don't react to things. And then having that step-by-step, step 1, I do this, step 2, I do this, it makes it so that it takes the guesswork out. You don't have to say, I got to do my finances, I don't even know where to begin. It's I got to do my finances and let me go check inventory.
Yeah.
And then you know the next step. So it takes that guesswork and that anxiety out of it.
Yes. Huh? Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. Well, this was fun.
Yeah.
Probably a lot more entertaining than just watching me. So we're going to try and do more of these. We're probably going to go through a deep dive into Profit First and maybe the accounts that Jessica has and what she uses them for. We'll talk about maybe different metrics you should track in your business. If you don't even know where you're supposed to be starting, though, there's another video somewhere in this channel of like the 3 essential things you absolutely should be doing if you don't know what else to do. So check that out. I don't know how to link it because this is still a learning process for me. But
it's cards. You have to, I'll show you.
Jessica keeps me like, you see why I love her so much? Anyway, all right. We'll see you next time.
Bye.